Hi, this is Bradley with Blue Cord, and I'm often asked the question, how do I quote? How do I do billing? I want to see you guys making the most money that you absolutely can, and that the customer understands the value in it. You already have the machine. You need to sell yourself, and if you have a good skill set and you are skilled with the equipment, you can be making a lot more money. So I'm going to show you some of the things I do to determine the value of the work the customer wants done. So stick around, check it out. Okay, so a couple days ago, we were discussing on a public forum on Facebook about an upcoming drain basin that I was going to be quoting on. And a lot of people were very curious as to the process that I go through to make that quote. All right, so one of the things that I use, one of the tools that I use is Google Earth. And they have some excellent measuring tools. And they also have historic imagery, so you can go back in time, especially in this case with the drain basin, and I'll show you why. As you can see, I'm zooming in, and it's really hard to see what's going on because there's a lot of canopy around. So I go up to the historical imagery, and I go back in time until I find a good image when the leaves are down. Most areas have images of the fall, winter, or very early spring. And here you can see, now there's a much clearer view of what's going on. Now I'm going to use some of the measuring tools and create a polygon, and we'll trace the edges and get a pretty good idea of the area in square footage or in acres of what we're going to be doing. Now you can see I'm tracing a line around the edge, and you can adjust it slightly. You can move the points around and get it exactly where you want and get what you think is the best measurement. Okay, that's looking pretty good right there. Now we'll take a look at the total area, and it's less than 3/4 of an acre. You can also see that there's a ditch running along this pathway right here, and I discussed that when I actually visited the site and walked around. So it's good to see that here in the aerial, so we have an approximate idea of where it is, and so we can try to avoid it and get it uncovered and see how dangerous it really is. So now that we have this information, now we can figure out, okay, the slope, can't really see that on Google Earth, so chances are you probably need to visit the site. I estimate that it's between 20 and 25 degrees in the steeper places. Still, too steep for traditional equipment to go in there and do that safely. And when you have a special piece of equipment, you need to charge a premium for using that equipment. You're not just going in there with a regular zero turn or a regular tractor. You are going in there with a Ventrac. That is a really special machine, a very expensive machine that can safely handle these conditions. Yes, that comes at a price. Hopefully, you'll be able to articulate that fact that you're using a very specialty piece of equipment and that the expectation of the quality of cut and the safety of the operation is above that of any other traditional tractor. Now that we've looked at it on satellite view, let's drive over there, take a closer look at it. You have a specialty piece of equipment that can tackle a disaster like this when guys with traditional equipment, they'd be struggling in here. They'd be foolish to attempt it because it's not safe. We've all seen those zero turns and things roll over, causing injury or even death. A lot of that going around. I hate to, with the Ventrac, you feel completely confident. So you can see, I mean, this is pretty steep. Do you want to go down in there?
Yes.
All right. Well, we got to be on top of that ditch here, man. It's got to be like right in here.
It starts right, you can see the difference.
Yeah, okay. It's hard to tell on the far bank, but this bank here, this down slope is about 20.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same all the way around.
Right. Maybe 22, 23. We're going to check on that when I come back. But yeah, okay. Very cool. All right, so now that I've showed you one of the best methods that I have to do a recon and determine area, square footage, acreage. Now we got to move on to what exactly is it that I'm going to charge. Well, that's a little more convoluted, and there's no one single answer. There's not a single dollar figure. I never ever charge by the hour, so I don't figure it out that way. It says a lot to a customer when you can look at a job and tell them what it's going to cost. When you give a quote by the hour, you're essentially telling the customer that you have no idea how long it's going to take and they need to hand you a blank check and you fill it out when you're done. So I tell them I'm there for the duration. I am there. They are spending this much money to get this desired result, and I know that the result is going to exceed their expectation. I know that I set the bar here, what they're going to get is here. And that's what I shoot for every single time. As a business owner, I think that a lot of you can appreciate that. And as a customer, I think that you would appreciate a contractor that really does take the time to do the job right. I don't look at my watch because I'm not on the clock. I'm there until the work is complete. And they're spending the amount of money agreed upon. Now, there are certain factors that would take the job outside the scope and realm of the original quote. These things happen. I'll give you an example right now, in that the drain basin that you guys have seen, there's a possibility, because it's surrounded by woodland, that one of these times I would encounter a tree that's fallen over, laying inside the area that I'm trying to cut. Well, I'm always prepared for that. So I always have my saw, and in a case like this, since there is that possibility, I'd probably have the bucket with grapple on the trailer just to handle such a situation. Now, of course, that is not free. That's not included with the cutting of the basin. That's extra work. So if that does occur, it's just one of those X factors that any reasonable customer will understand has a dollar amount attached to it. So before I proceed with any additional work, I reach out to the customer immediately, which is why I insist that the customer be home at the time the work is performed, because these things happen. I want to have the absolute best line of communication possible. And if they're unavailable and only there for a phone call, that's better than nothing, but it is always better if they are there on station, that they can come out and take a look and they can answer your question right away, or better, if they have a question, they can ask me directly as they're watching me get the work done. So back to the tree that's fallen into the drain basin. If this happens, I would contact the person in charge of that, which would be the president of the HOA, and I would take a look at it and I would quickly assess a dollar figure to buck and quarter that tree and to move it off to a location outside of the drain basin. As a contractor, that's something that you need to be able to determine on the fly. You have to be able to figure that out in the same way that you will have figured out what the dollar amount is for the job that you're already performing. So I've already given a quote, and for those that contact me privately, I will let you know how I quote and what I quoted on that drain basin, and the HOA was absolutely thrilled that I could do it for that amount of money. And to beat all of that, this story is very interesting in that the contractor who was mowing that drain basin previously had a Steiner. Really nice guy. He's been following our channel for a while, but he's relocated and is working in a different area, and he's not able to get his equipment down to do the drain basin for that HOA. So naturally, the HOA asked him, well, do you have any recommendations of anyone else that would be able to do this job? Well, he said right away, you need to call Bradley. Bradley even has a YouTube channel. He's got all kinds of stuff on there, and you can see what he does in living color. So when that happened, the president of the HOA was really thrilled and reached out to me, and we exchanged a few emails. I even met the original contractor that was mowing that at the site, and we walked around, as you saw in the video earlier. So this really gave a very unique perspective in that I wasn't going in there completely blind. And the last time, one of the questions I asked, and if you're a good contractor, you'll know exactly the right questions to ask. And any discerning customer is going to know that you're a good contractor based on the questions that you're asking. I've been hired a number of times pretty much over the phone based solely on the fact that the knowledge I had dictated that I asked certain questions about certain aspects, and they'd come back and say, you obviously know what you're talking about because you're asking all the right things. So one of my first questions to the previous contractor that was mowing this basin is, when was the last time you cut it? And how much did you charge at the time? Well, it hadn't been cut since August of last year. Now we're talking about last year's prices. Last year's prices, inflation was 10% less. Fuel prices were half what they are today. Stuff is more expensive. So I felt very comfortable in the quote that I gave, and the president of the HOA was really happy to hear that, and he perfectly understands that prices have definitely gone up since last year. So I hope that this brief video has been a help to give you guys at least a sense of direction on what you should be charging. You having a Ventrac or a Steiner, you are not in the same tier as people using traditional equipment. You're up here. You need to charge accordingly. So don't forget that, guys. You could be making a lot more money. And I plan on coming out with a future video on how I do billing and the value that you need to place on your skill set and your special equipment. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. You can reach out to me privately. That'll be the only place that I would feel comfortable in actually talking numbers. But I will have nice one-on-one with whoever wants it. Listen, guys, I take a lot of time to make these videos, edit and upload them, and share my knowledge with you. I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to like and subscribe to our channel. And not only does that help our channel, but it also helps other people be able to easily find this channel that otherwise wouldn't know about us. The more thumbs up we get, the more people see our videos. Anyway, keep your eyes out for that future video on billing and how to make more money. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.